Okay, so I'm thinking we need to get like some little 5 to 10 second audio cue theme song for this stupid thing, because otherwise it's really awkward when I have to do something like introduce a special guest like we have this time around to join us in our prattling.
You get like a sweet metal tune or something.
Yeah, something really that doesn't really fit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could go
Under the table.
Yeah.
or we could go the internet lo-fi atheist route and have like the growly like cookie monster metal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Just telling it like it is.
because there's apparently some band out there that will give you a 30-second growly cookie monster metal theme song for $29.99 or some such. I don't know.
I'm suddenly tempted.
Yeah.
Well, you have to be atheist, you have to wear a fedora, and you have to have a beard.
Oh no! The new thing isn't the fedoras and the beards. It's the semi-animated character assembled from Shutterstock images. That's the new thing.
Maybe we should. Not that people wouldn't have seen the title, but we have Allison Pregler of Movie Nights and Baywatching,
Hi.
the show you can't find on Tumblr because Tumblr hides Patreon links.
Tumblr's good. They like to give people what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I when I found out about that, I was like, wait a minute. All I use this thing for is promotion. If you're not good for promotion, what are you even for?
Oh, we rambled. Speaking of promotion, what was it? The most successful Kickstarter in history? The new season of Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Yeah, it got
think
some
it was.
buku bucks, didn't it?
Yeah. And that's what we're going to talk about because we're all fans of the Mystery Science and we've all seen the full season by now.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Mystery Science Theater, is it? Is that what this is?
Something like that, yeah.
Something. Yeah, I love Mystery Science Theater.
Oh, yeah. And I think we all came into it at different times. Allison, you want to talk about when, or if there's any funny story about when you found it or whatever?
When I started watching it, it was around the sci-fi era, I guess. That's where it was rerunning. But when I first watched it, and I don't remember how I first heard of it, it was through downloads on, like, LimeWire or something. And it was just whatever was there. And one of the first ones I saw was Space Mutiny, and that was the one that sealed it for me, and that's still my favorite episode.
Oh, you came in on a good one.
Yeah. My
LimeWire. God. There's a time capsule that wasn't that long ago.
oh yeah. The mine was sort of was different because I had come in on it actually from friends who had Comedy Central, as I would see it over at their houses because my cable package didn't get it for a while. And but it was an easy leap for me because I had been really into USA Up All Night, and I think it was called Nightflix, where they would redub the movies.
I don't remember that one.
There was some like small show that was like Mystery Science Theater, but instead of it being them commenting on the movies, everything was a What's Up Tiger Lily. And if I could find that show, it was amazing because they had like some old black and white thing that they'd redubbed into a Wizard of Oz sequel. And just because like at one point the characters happened to go by a school with a whole bunch of children, so they decided, okay, that's the Munchkins. We're just gonna go from there. And there was like they had like the pilot episodes for some Japanese Ranger show that they'd redubbed. It was crazy. So
now, was this freestyle or did they script it?
These were scripted, and I think it was something like ran for a season that you would see on USA if you were up at like 2 a.m. It was one of those things. But like the thing that really got me and my friends was when they started coming out on videotape, and we would be able to snatch a couple of episodes here and there. So we had the big one was Cave Dwellers. We had was like sort of our first sort of inaugural thing was Cave Dwellers, which was fun. And Pod People was another one that was really big.
Very good episodes for that time.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
Greg, you were
I
there from the
came in
start, weren't you?
close to. I didn't see KTMA because obviously I wasn't in that area. But I was like homesick from school one day and just kind of, this was back when it was still the Comedy Channel and they had like 8 shows and 5 of them were clip shows and only 3 of those had hosts. They were like MTV for video for comedy clips basically.
Mm-hmm.
And you have VJs, which is not a really, that sounds very different now.
Yeah, I think I remember. I think I remember seeing like a little bit of it at that time, and they just like run little bits of comedian stand-up routines, right?
Yeah, and then they just had the pure clip shows without even hosts, and then they changed like short attention span theater to having hosts, which is where Jon Stewart got his Comedy Central start.
Oh gosh, I forgot about the VJs thing. I do remember that now. I remember they would just show little clips from stand-up.
And I remember I hadn't seen anything about it or heard about it, and I was just kind of home, because I was home, middle of the day, flip. Well, it's okay, there's usually some old HBO special on Comedy Channel, that's good. And I actually was catching it right at the Invention Exchange. This is like first season. And I'm pretty sure it's first season, too, because I had seen nothing but first season for quite a long time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And then they go, and then they start showing a Commando Cody. I'm like, oh, okay, this is like on Higgins, Boys, and Gruber, where they're just showing Supercar, because apparently that's supposed to be funny. Oh. And then I realized, wait, they're talking over this thing. And I actually remember the very line that sold me. It was like, one of the, not Commando Cody, but they were wearing his outfit, drops his bomb on this moon car, boom, and just times it, right in the plywood. And I'm just like, okay, I'm in. And then it was Robot Holocaust, which is still one of my all-time favorite episodes, even though it's far back and it's a very different style of riff, but they were very comfortable then, and it's just this perfect cheeseball mid-'80s wannabe sci-fi apocalypse movie that I believe was actually made by a porno director, like a gay porn director, under a pseudonym, which kind of explains a lot. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of went from there and just stuck with it through all the incarnations.
That's great. That's a long time.
Yeah. I tend to, if I find something I like, I tend to stick with it for a very long time.
Can I tell you guys something? Like, I only recently got Phelan into Mystery Science Theater.
Well, they wouldn't have aired it up there, would they?
I have no idea. He didn't. He'd seen some of it. He knew what it was, but the ones that were shown to him were like black and white ones, which tend to be the ones that are the hardest to sell. And he did the review on Hobgoblins. He didn't know that Mystery Science Theater had done it, and he kept getting comments like, Mystery Science Theater did it, and he got so annoyed with them that he eventually did watch it, but that sort of tainted his view of it for a while. But I got him. Yeah, but I got him to watch some, and we've watched almost all of them together now, but it's funny, he really liked Joel's delivery for a lot of them, which I guess makes sense, because they are very similar, Phelan and Joel, in their deadpan delivery. And I remember one of the ones that cracked him up the most was we were watching Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. And there's the scene with the robot walking in the snow. And they go, "That's one dopey-looking robot." Just that delivery just killed him. So every once in a while we'll just pull that one out for no reason.
That's a dopey-looking robot.
Yeah.
I can hear him say it in my head now.
Because there's a lot of Joel lines that are not funny in themselves, but the delivery is really funny.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what makes it.
That's actually kind of a good segue into talking about the new series. Overall, I thought it was good. Needs work. They were getting better over time, but they still need to find their groove a little more, I guess.
I think that it wasn't until episode 9, when they got to Yongari, that they really got the formula down.
Yeah.
So judging from like where they ended, and I knew that's how it was going to go too, because even with like Mike and Joel when they were first starting, they had to have time to fall into it.
Yeah.
But even more so with this, because there was no transition team. It was all new people. You know, they had Joel and some other people, but mostly it's just new people trying to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it took a little bit, but I think they ironed out most of the issues. There's still some things that bother me, but just from the way that it ended, like I really hope they get another season. I'm pretty sure they will.
Oh yeah, I think a new season is probably if not a done deal, then another Kickstarter will be in order, and I'm sure that'll.
I'm sure that if the show had not been getting good views on Netflix, we would have already seen a fan panic campaign coming in to say, no, guys, you have to watch more, so we'll get more.
I think the reception's been really positive from people for the most part.
Well, yeah.
I haven't really looked at review, but apparently the Rotten Tomatoes score was really good, and like there's been a bunch of press reviews all over the place, so so I'd say a second season is definitely good, and hopefully that'll definitely give them time to kind of iron out those last few. I still feel like the delivery comes across a little too script ready.
I think they improved on the rapport going on, because before it was very scripted and not so natural, and I think they weren't used to each other yet.
And
it was obvious that there were like 14 different writers trying to cram in all of their jokes, and it was too much all at once, and they figured out how to
time.
Yeah, just it's not about the quantity of the jokes, it's the quality, and I think they improved on that.
Well, that's one of those things that when you're doing riffing for the first time, I can say from experience, almost universally your first attempt is too heavy. It's you try to go throw too much at it at once, and you have to figure out how to let there be rests and breaks and things like that.
I think it also when you have these breaks and that lets them react to each other's jokes. I always like once you got to the tail end of Mike's run, when they were laughing at each other's stuff more, when they were just like little chuckles and.
Mm-hmm.
It felt more like friends hanging out riffing a movie rather than just let's script this and see where it lands. And some of the early episodes of the new season, particularly the first few, but this was prevalent until around episode 9, honestly. What they would do was cram so many jokes in, and not just the speed of how many jokes there were, the delivery was really quickly. Like, they're like, let's just get this out here because we got to get to the next one. It was forcing you to pay attention to the jokes or the movie. And the movie was winning because I couldn't follow what was going on with the jokes, and they weren't landing.
That's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of sort of clarifying what I'd been thinking along similar lines. Although
not helped by Jonah and Baron having very similar voices, I can tell them apart now.
That was the huge thing for me.
Yeah.
Although I did go back last night and I rewatched Reptilicus, and it fares better on a rewatching once you're used to Jonah and Baron's voices and things of that nature. It seems to do a little bit better on the second watch than the first one, at least for me.
The best description that I heard of the voice thing is that it feels like they all auditioned for the same animated role. They have very similar voices and very similar personas with it, and that's one of the things. Like they got better toward the end of the season for sure, and it helps after you listen to it a while. You can tell the difference, the voices apart, because even if the voices weren't so similar, when they do different affectations, like they're doing like a girly voice or a nerdy voice or whatever, if you're not familiar with that voice of theirs, you don't know who's doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
It really would help if Tom Servo's voice had more of a tonal difference.
Yeah. A little bit more.
That one I'm still not.
A little more.
Yeah, I'm still not entirely sold on that, but I do. I can tell the difference now more after seeing more of it.
Yeah, Hampton does a distressingly good halfway between Trace and Bill Crow. I will say and I can as soon as he leaves that voice, it's a little harder to tell it's him. But yeah, actually, what you said about the persona was a good thing because it's something that kind of bothered me on. I've seen this twice now with kind of like a couple of key episodes on a third time,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of feel like Jonah isn't as developed a character as he kind of needs to be as the third host.
He hasn't found himself yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
as
don't
a
really get.
character.
Yeah, as a character, I think again as it went on, he was becoming more comfortable, and I think becoming more involved with the writing. I'm not sure if he was writing as many of the jokes in the earlier episodes, but so I'm getting it a little more. But I think he hasn't quite found his niche yet as a specific character.
Yeah, it kind of oscillates wildly between their sketches that really feel like they were written with Joel in mind.
Yeah.
When he's doing these presentations and being ever slightly more fatherly, which doesn't really work for anybody but Joel.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to make him too much like Mike, although I love it when I've always loved robot-human conflict on the show, even in the old series. I love that stuff.
Yeah, Joel definitely was more parental, and as a character was very laid back and come what may as his sort of approach. Mike was very relatable for me because Mike is surrounded by idiots and cannot escape, and it's just like this constant thing of it. And that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not also an idiot, but it's
that's what I love about Sci-Fi Era. Everybody on that show was an idiot.
Yeah,
there's not a single non-idiot in the cast.
Right. But there's
they just have their selective moments of thorough idiocy.
You see,
you could tell that the stuff, the host bits, Joel probably had something to do with how they were written, and maybe that's why they come off more Joelish.
Yeah,
I think maybe I don't know what the age difference really is between how old Mike and Joel were when they started and Jonah now. But Jonah comes off a little bit younger, the younger generation.
Yeah.
I don't know if that... so maybe if they kind of played with that more.
Well, I don't... Actually, you know what? Let's open up and see just how... Because I'm pretty sure Jonah's probably in his 30s.
It probably isn't that big of a difference. It might also just be because the show is more modern now, and so it makes 34. Me think... Okay.
He's 34.
Okay.
So, yeah. And I'm pretty sure Joel's at least 50 at this point.
So there probably isn't that much of a difference. It's probably just because the show is more modern, but he doesn't have...
Yeah.
Well, Jonah is also kind of baby-faced.
Yeah.
Compared to the other two.
I think it also... it's also... I'm going to say a difference of comic style, because most of the Mystery Science crew, up until Bill, came from one area.
Well, and they also did a lot of really ancient references, even for back then. And so there was always that old-fashioned style humor, particularly with Joel, that felt like it was from the 50s or the 40s or things like that.
It's funny you say that, because it's not just age, because when they started, Josh Weinstein, the original Tom Servo, was like 17, 18, and he was right there with it. I've watched a couple of the KTMAs, and he's improving jokes along those lines about Love Boat and all that. So it's like, wow.
Well, I mean, Love Boat wasn't so ancient back then, but...
Yeah.
Well, also, just pop culture was very different back then because reruns meant something. Shows, like popular shows, would linger for decades. And so there was a little bit more of like, you were more aware of what was going on in the 50s and 60s because you were still watching those shows. It's just, when the cartoons were gone, all you had left were old reruns of Mayberry and whatnot. But
I guess that's also influenced by what was nostalgic back then.
Yeah.
Because like the 80s had an obsession with the 50s, and then it, moves up throughout the decades. And one of the things that I've appreciated about the new series is that there's a good mix of old and modern references. I was afraid that it was just going to be a lot of like hashtag Twitter jokes and stuff like that. But they have had a good mix of that kind of stuff, and I think maybe not quite so ancient as the old series went, but they're going back to what is nostalgic now, but still what the audience would remember.
A few older references I think they could drop. I think they made all the too many Andrew Dice Clay jokes. Like I think we could have dropped.
They had a William Cat reference in there. Yeah.
What's that?
We had a William Cat reference in there.
Oh, I'm good with the William Cat, but just like every now and then they just drop this Jack and Jill in a boat, go! Just why this random reference to Andrew Dice Clay? What? He's not really worth referencing out of the blue.
I like the really specific ones that, like, if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, then whatever.
Yeah.
But the references that bothered me were the ones that were just references to be references. Which they stopped doing as much, but in the earlier ones, they would, for instance, someone would say the word gully, and then they would say Fern Gully.
Oh, yeah.
And that was it. And it'd be like, okay, but there's no joke there. You're just saying Fern Gully.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a little comforting to know that they're not above the YouTube riffer completely in that regard. Because we're all guilty of that once in a while.
I think part of that too is just figuring out where to go with the jokes and with the riffs, and I think one of the things they figured out is that some of the best riffs that they did on the old Mystery Science Theater to me was when they take something in the movie and exaggerate it to become its own story and their own characters. So for instance, Carnival Magic. When they're making fun of the carnies, and like they become just like these disgusting backwoods people, like, but they're all right with being carnies. That's just the carny life. It's not really what's in the movie, but because they have weaved this story, it becomes that. Like how in Space Mutiny, Reb Brown's character became this dumb jock. Like, oh man, the coach is gonna ream me. So I think those are sort of the best riffs, is when they sort of create their own story with it.
Yeah, they did a good job with Doug McClure and his appetite, I think.
Yeah.
Just constantly talking about, we're just going to take that, and dino meat's got to be perfectly boiled by now.
the new Joe Don Baker, huh?
Yeah. What was the little baby references in the Santa Claus movie?
Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Yeah, that's...
I'm just a little baby like you, don't tell anyone.
That was from like a 5-second shot of him just looking creepy,
And that was an angle, because that review that riff could have easily, I'm just stuck in critic mode. That riff could have easily just turned into like, well, whatever. But because they came up with this baby character with this kind of creepy guy following Santa around, it was really funny.
Yeah, it definitely feels like early on they had a real problem with like 14 or whatever writers not quite coordinating and just cramming.
I think they had to gel with each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
To figure out how to bounce off of each other.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Yeah, they've definitely gotten better. Like I said, there's still a lot of work, but I think they're really well on their way to a decent job.
I think they figured out things like when you're doing the sketches. The funniest ones are when they relate to the movie rather than just coming up with like, this random thing happened or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when they had like the special guests on, when they had bits that had to do with the movie, those were the ones that landed the best for me.
Yeah, it didn't help the fact, one, I don't like Jerry Seinfeld. I just don't. Never did. So having him come on and be in this sketch that had nothing to do with the movie and didn't really build anything, and
it was kind of a waste of talent, I felt.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna use Jerry Seinfeld, like, you gotta do something more with it, and it didn't feel like it went anywhere.
Yeah,
Right.
but I adore the one with Mark Hamill.
Oh
That one
yeah,
was
He
the
just got
funniest to me.
to he just got to play big.
that really
And
felt like a late run sci-fi sketch. That one,
yeah.
yeah, just because they kind of had that theme of running across like weird kind of idiotic shysters in space. And that was like one of the things they did all the dang time. Because everybody in it, like you said, everybody in the old show was both dumb. They were all idiots, and most of them were just kind of that sort of like even when they were bad guys, they were that sort of petty, just could be dangerous if they had some vision, but otherwise it's just hilarious type of thing. And he was perfect at that.
Speaking of villains, I gotta say I do like Kinga and Max. We could probably stand for them to be a little more cartoonish, but again, that's my general preference for how cartoony the sci-fi era got.
hmm
But they got good chemistry, I think.
Yeah, I'm particularly fond of Max and his. I like Max's little bumpers that they do.
Yeah,
Those I kind of like, and I think that throws back to me having come up on the Joe Bob Briggs USA Up All Night type of shows before
yeah,
MST3K, because those types of comments were the types that you would get in between uh, in between movie segments when they were going to commercial on those things. And it just sort of hits a nice nostalgic groove for me there.
I love those throwbacks with the bumpers, and I think Patton Oswalt's hilarious. I've always liked
oh,
him.
Mm-hmm.
Felicia Day, this is my own personal preference. She's just not my cup of tea. But I tried not to let that color the character.
mhm.
It didn't land for me as well. I don't know if they've developed enough of a character with it yet.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
feel like if the joke is that she's bad at this and she just wants to like make her grandmother proud, I feel like they should make it a little more pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So if they could play with that a little more, that would be good.
Little sparkle motion, I
Yeah.
think, is what
Yeah.
just the show in general. I think needs a little sparkle motion. Commit to the joke big
Yeah.
time.
Throw yourself behind it fully, and if you fall down, you fall down, but at least you tried.
Mhm.
That sort of thing. Um, but yeah, I,
Yeah, there's bits where I swear I can watch the Moon 14 Mesozoic barbecue sketch on
oh
repeat.
my god, yeah, that's
That just I'm sorry. Yeah, I lose it when Felicia just Django just screams it and Patton just jumps. Just those sudden bursts of manic energy are just great.
and
And it's just a really well. It flows fast. It builds up. It gives you just enough room to breathe to realize, oh shit, they're building up to something stupid again.
and it's as we've discussed amongst ourselves, it's so obvious that that was written by Patton. That's like Patton locked the door
He's
to the
just having a
writers' room
ball
until
with
he
this.
he nailed that one.
Yeah. Jingle self-aware, now it's saying what it wants to. Boom, boom.
Oh,
I thought that the choice of movies might hurt the show a little, like losing the old black and white sci-fi stuff. I'm not convinced it didn't.
Honestly, I do not miss black and white scientists talking. I just those are the
I'm
most
with you.
boring things to me. But I do feel like there's something to be missed, and it's not the show's fault. This is just how things are done now. But because everything's in HD and you're using like HD masters and things like that, you do lose some things like 70s TV movie pilots and things
Yeah.
like that. The kind of really crummy things that are just made for TV or made in SD, and you don't have HD copies of them.
Yeah.
They're kind of stitched together. Those ones were often one of the funniest ones to me.
And the
But
shorts. I really missed the lack of shorts.
I think they said that they would incorporate more if they kept going with more seasons. They were just trying to, stick with
Yeah.
the standard stuff, I guess, for now. But
Let's face it, after what? How many years of riff tracks? How much is left in the public? I know we've had a hard time finding stuff sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean,
they're different styles, even though they are
Yeah.
both riffing it. So I feel like there's still going to be some overlap there, and it would still
Sure.
be funny.
well, I mean, even
I don't know how you.
I'm not 100% sold on some of the better movies, because, like, the two ones with Doug McClure were both, honestly, for their age, they were pretty good, and
They had really decent budgets. Like some
Yeah.
of them, they looked really good.
they weren't poorly acted. It was just more the comedy was more in the just the of their timeness.
Yeah.
You know, like casual racism. You know.
yeah, that sort of thing. I personally, I do like that more of them were color movies, because it's not like God, what was the one that was just like there was one that was still of that, like, oh, this movie's still making this a slog, and I'm trying to remember which episode that was.
In the new season?
In the new season, yeah, there was one that was, it's the one with the Beast of Hollow Mountain. That one still has a whole lot of, like, oh god, it's not like Manos, where, like, if you need to have more than one person watching, even with the riff, in order to sort of keep upright in Manos. But
Or you need to do what the riff tracks riff of Manos did and just balls to the wall insane. I don't know. Have you heard the Manos riff?
no,
Riff tracks?
I haven't watched the riff tracks one.
Oh dear, they take the whole Torgo thing and take it to about 12. You go past 11, it's like, top bunk's mine, bottom bunk is just a pile of my drippings.
Oh god.
Yeah, it's jokes like that. They really,
Okay, it's fair. I mean,
yeah. But no, I know. Yeah, Hollow Mountain was a rough one because it was just mostly a cowboy movie for most of it, and not even a particularly bad one.
I think my favorite of the new season was Wizards of the Lost Kingdom 2. That was so good. Because that had the perfect combination of stupid fantasy movie, annoying kid who... I don't know if you guys recognize this actor. I think his name's Robert Jane. He was from Tremors as Melvin. Remember the annoying kid where he gets some people killed and he's an annoying kid. Anyway, he's good at playing really annoying, whiny characters. But when he's trying to not be the annoying, whiny kid, he's still doing the annoying, whiny kid voice. It was so funny.
That
This
one,
is what a hero does.
that one
Just
was
like how ridiculous that movie was and its attempts at comedy, like just
Yeah.
falling so flat.
it was like Deathstalker meets Final Sacrifice.
Yeah.
It reminded me a bit of Jack Frost too, as well. Just slightly, that fantasy element with kind of like, well, this is stupid. Oh, mushroom guy, huh? All right.
Yeah.
What was the old one? Quest of the Delta Knights.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that one.
That era where they couldn't quite, where they're clearly trying to do something that's a kid's movie, but they want to. It's like, no, you're making a few too many sexy jokes, and also it's just creepy to have that kid try and be seduced by it. That's just creepy, guys.
Yeah. So it's like,
creepy,
who is
guys.
this aimed for? Who
Yeah.
is this aimed at? It's like carnival magic. Good lord. Carnival magic, you couldn't tell. Well, you could tell watching it. It was made by a horror director who had done a couple kids' movies because it was so creepy. And I loved that because it was like, who is this aimed at? What child would enjoy this? It's so depressing.
Let's watch Gray, and oh, it's a monkey. It's not even an entertaining one. I like that sketch that they did with crows. That looks like it's gonna rain.
Yeah, that one was good.
I don't know, I think my favorite movie just out of the batch is just the movie itself, not necessarily the episode. Has got to be Star Crash. Just
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen Star Crash before. Star Crash was still funny to me, but it was still at a point in the season where I don't feel like the jokes were landing.
not quite.
And
Not-
I feel like they kind of missed a good opportunity, because that had the potential to be a classic, and I don't think it quite was as funny as the movie was.
yeah, I mean, never mind. Even ignoring the Hasselhoff, which is hard to do.
They only made one Hasselhoff joke. It was weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know. I find myself fascinated by the movies, just what people were thinking when making them. Sometimes
The one that
and that's one where
Well,
it's
they
just
were
like,
thinking Star Wars is what they
Yeah.
were thinking.
they were thinking Star Wars at its most surface level.
Star Wars. Let's just get some more sexy ladies in there, shall we?
Yeah,
yeah,
I
Can
like
you
how our
get some more hairspray on the guys? Their hair's not big enough.
not poofy and beautiful enough. I like how our heroine does literally nothing all movie. She does
Did
not.
you? Oh, go ahead.
She literally does not affect the plot at all. She gets kidnapped, and then Acton or Simon or Elle save her.
Did you guys know that the robot in that movie was not originally comedic? It was
Really?
a different voice, and they decided in post that they were going to make it a funny Texan voice, and so that's what they did.
Oh dear.
Oh wow.
That kind of explains. I mean, the whole thing sounds redubbed from the ground up.
That would explain why no one in the movie reacts to any of his jokes.
Yeah, well, they're bad jokes anyway, but
Right.
you know.
But
Well, like you were saying, Trent, that like the villain sounds like Gary Chalk doing a villain voice.
yeah,
and
it
doesn't
really
quite-
does, and it's not him. I actually went and I tracked down, and I was like, okay, when did Gary Chalk's career begin? When is his first known recording? Because maybe he did it uncredited. I'm like, because it sounds so much like him doing the bad guy voice from like the opening of Ulysses, the old Ulysses cartoon that's set in the future, which is basically.
Was... Go ahead.
It's basically him being like very angry Optimus Primal, but it's a voice he used to do a lot, and I was like, God, that sounds just like him. Nope. Movie predates Gary Chalk's career by 3 years.
Was the movie an Italian production?
It sure as hell seemed
I'd be
like it.
shocked if
Because
I'd
it
be
has
shocked
the
if it
feel of
wasn't.
one of those that they filmed like with no sound and then just dubbed it in English or whatever
'cause
language they wanted.
even Hasselhoff, you look at it and it's like, no, this sounds like a dub. This sounds like Hasselhoff dubbing his lines in.
Yeah, that's. I got the same
Even
feel.
for giving whatever acting or direction they were going for, that doesn't sound like Hasselhoff acting.
Yeah. The thing that the movie that got me that I was really taken by was the Grand Moff Tarkin was in it. Cushing.
At the Earth's core?
At the Earth's core. And,
Yeah.
and that's partially because, one, it was just from a beautiful level of, like, when people would attempt to make these types of fantasy movies without understanding whether they were possible. Like, it's just like, how are we going to do this? We don't know! Let's do it anyway! It's like...
That movie was based off of a book.
Right, it
that
was
by
based...
the Tarzan author.
Right, it was based on
he
the
had a
first...
million of them set in this universe.
The first Pellucidar book. Yeah, I actually am a huge fan of the Pellucidar books. I love them.
So this was a good adaptation, right?
Oh my god. Surprisingly accurate in a lot of ways that you would not expect.
Is it as depressing as this movie was? Because it looked depressing.
No, like when you're reading the actual book, it's thrilling because it's like they just keep getting tossed from like it follows the Burroughs and Howard, the pulp hero convention where the heroes just keep getting tossed from like dangerous situation to dangerous situation, and everybody gets taken prisoner like at least 3 times. But like the thing that got me the most was the Mayhar suits.
Which is the Mayhar again?
They were the pterodactyl monsters.
Oh, the fucking giant turkeys?
Yeah. Because, like, one of the reasons I love the Pellucidar books is the bad guys, the Mayhar, are a specific type of early pterodactyl called a Rhamphorhynchus, or a Rhamphorhynchus or something. And it was one of the breeds. There were certain things that when I was a little kid, I was huge into dinosaurs, still am, but there were certain animals that terrified me. And it was basically anything that had the fish-catching teeth. The ones that like stick out and cross across each other. They're used for spearing fish.
Oh, yeah.
So like that's what these things eat. So they had these horrible teeth, and like the fossils, they all have these huge eyes. And so Burroughs had written them to be these super intelligent, deaf telepathic monsters that ran this society. And but they weren't like super huge. They were still like basically a little bit smaller than human beings. And then like we go over to this, and it's like it was like the people at they'd like hired the people that made the banana splits to create a Rodan costume.
And Sid and Marty Krofft at the Earth's core.
And I'm just like, wait, that's the Mayhar? That's hilarious.
Is this a movie you'd seen before, though?
No, this is the first time I'd seen it. I wasn't even really aware that they had made a movie based on that book, because really...
It's the famous At the Earth's Core movie. How'd you not hear about it? Everyone's talking about At the Earth's Core. They're like, Star Wars, At the Earth's Core, classic sci-fi.
But, like, no, it was one of those things where I'm like, really? Wait, there was a Pellucidar movie with Peter Cushing, and I didn't know about it? I am clearly letting myself down. But
when
like,
are they gonna adapt the one where Tarzan goes there?
Oh,
it's clearly the best one.
Yeah, it was sort of like I used to hear like how they were thinking about making a John Carter movie in the 70s, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, how? Literally half your cast has 4 arms.
Well, At the Earth's Core, I'll give them this: the effects for that time.
Oh yeah, no.
Are still good. I mean, yeah. I'm sure they don't hold up compared to the book. I'm not familiar with the material myself, but you can tell that there was a lot of budget put into this. And I could tell when I heard that it was based off of a book. I'm sure they took some liberties.
Oh, lots.
Because that would be very difficult to pull off, even today, but especially in 60s, 70s, whenever they made that.
What I'm just kind of trying to get across is I love that somebody read that book, and it was like clearly the 1960s, and they're like, okay, I just read this awesome book, we're going to make this into a movie. Do you have any idea how we're going to accomplish any of these special effects? No, I don't. We're just going to figure it out as we go along.
Hope and a prayer.
Yeah. We got some leftover sets from a live-action Alice in the Wonderland porno, and we're just going forward. Oh, tell me that's not what those looked like.
I can't argue with that.
But
one little thing that Trent and I discussed this before, but something that, well... there's some elements of the new show that I'm not 100% sure they need to keep. And I think the big one for me is I'm kind of at this point where I'm wondering if they need to retire the Invention Exchange.
I don't mind Invention Exchange, but they stopped doing it in, around Mike seasons because they were running out of ideas. Well, Joel wasn't there, and that's his humor. The prop humor, but even then, it was kind of it was kind of played out by then, and by now it's like prop humor is not really as popular as it was back then anyway. But if you're gonna do it, they gotta land, and a lot of them are kind of like, all right, whatever.
Yeah,
and it felt like they didn't have as many ideas for them.
It really worked very early on because a lot of especially season 1, a lot of those were from Joel's stand-up act where he was doing that weird. And it was really creative, weird prop humor, and I really liked that. I mean, the hell in a handbag was great. Just, boom, open flame coming out of a lady's purse, and the head cranker, and just all this weird, really weird stuff, and it really worked there. But about halfway through Joel's run, you just kind of felt like it's running out of steam. And I really don't think the joke with the Mads stealing inventions based on a riff, it didn't work, and there was no real payoff to any of it.
Yeah. The Invention Exchange was a great Joel thing. But again, if they want Jonah to find his own thing, it shouldn't be that, because it's Joel's. I like that they brought back the letters Like I like that has that feel of like you're watching it on an old tube TV, and then they're gonna read the letters from the kids.
Yeah, I like
I think that might work better though in season 2 when they have letters based on the Jonah era rather than just Mystery Science is back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like maybe it was a test run for like they're like, okay, maybe we should bring this back when people know who we are.
Right.
Yeah, I think it would work better in a season 2 when they have actual fan mail from season 1.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say that I do hope that whatever they do move, if they do drop the Invention Exchange, I do hope they still give an excuse for whoever it is on the production who got that CNC mill machine. Because clearly whoever has the laser cutter mill machine has been going nuts with it and enjoys it quite a bit. And it would be a pity for them to lose that.
Figurines. I like the little wooden figurines. Like that seems like something specific to Jonah that they should keep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really made me want one of those
talking
machines.
About the 3D printing and all that. Yeah, that does feel more. Yeah, that does help make Jonah that he's more of a not so much a gizmo crap, but just kind of a craftsman.
Yeah.
The term
when he did the song about monsters too, that was half rap, that felt like something specific to him, that style.
Yeah. And if he wants to do more of that stuff, I would be totally down with it. I really liked it. I think in keeping with what you were just saying, Greg, the new term that people seem to use is maker. That's the one that they tend to apply to people who, like me, are just like, I just want to make it. And I'll pick up whatever skill I need to do it. That seems to be, if they kind of take his character in that direction, like less the Invention Exchange and more like what is this weird thing Jonah has cobbled together today. Plus, the little wooden figurines are fun if they ever want to do like the acting out scenes from the movie thing.
Then I think that one sketch where he just built all those fake robots for Tom and Crow to smash.
Yeah, that was
that seemed a very good Jonah moment. Without he's not really up to building a whole new robot. He's not, but he'll do this just because he knows.
Well, they had a couple jokes where he did make fully functioning robots.
Yeah,
and I guess the joke was that like, haha, it's funny because it's these other robots, but whatever, they're going away, or that's just Rolf, but a robot.
Yeah.
But I don't mind the idea of creating other supporting character robots that every once in a while would show up. I don't think they need to like take over or anything, but that's not even a new idea. They had like the nanobots in the Mike season and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just something that you could bring back and have some other puppet characters you could interact with.
Yeah,
that aren't the main people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that sounds like it would be a good sort of payoff, and I do think that what they're planning on doing for the first episode of next season is doing an all-robot riff for the first episode. Because they left Growler intact at the end of the episode, whereas they'd murdered all of the other new robots. And it was kind of...
But were they planning on keeping him around, the just Rolf guy?
What I think they're doing is...
I did laugh at the Leonard Cohen joke, though.
Leonard
Cohen.
I think they're going to keep him around just to be like, to fill in Jonah's riff role for like an episode or something. Because they used to do they would occasionally do the episodes where like, Pearl would riff with the robots to test out the theater, or... there was the episode where like they're in the alternate universe where TV's Frank and Trace are having to do the riffing, and those sort of experiments with like the formatting and the cast I always kind of enjoyed as like little one-off episodes.
I'll tell you one-off episode I would love to see, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen for various reasons. But I would love to see like a 3 generations all in the theater at once riff. So you get like Joel, Josh Servo, and Trace Crow, and then Mike and Kevin Servo and Bill Crow, and then the new 3, and just all 9 of them. And
man, that's a lot of people, though. There's a lot to deal with.
it is, but we've seen them do that. There was like the Riff Tracks live show. I think they had like 11 riffers on stage at one point.
They did, which was they still had to. It was a precarious balancing act. It was still great. I loved it, but it's really difficult to have a satisfying riff with that many people because they don't get to do very much.
Might be best if they do try that, they should probably wait until such time as they are what am I trying to say? When they've got a better handle on things, maybe.
Yeah.
Like when they're a little bit more experienced.
Split it up between here's Generation 1 does this segment, Generation 2 does this segment, Generation 3 does this segment.
Yeah, if they split it up a bit and maybe just did more interacting in the segments in between.
Yeah,
that might work.
Or just split them up and have like 1, 2, 3, and have 3 batches. Here's somebody from the first generation. Here's somebody from the second and the third. These 3 do this split.
Right, and that could be fun. It might even be kind of fun to see like the 3 different crows going at it at once. Just kind of compare the different crows.
That'd be great.
Oh yeah.
There was a theory I read. Or an idea from an interview with Joel about the new season that the Crow and Servo that are on the Satellite of Love now are not the original ones, because there was a bunch of like doubles anyway, so maybe the ones that went back with Mike are still there and these are just doubles and there's just a bunch of them that exist.
Well, it almost have to be because the ending, they're on Earth at the end of the sci-fi episode, so
yeah. I kind of like that idea. There's just a bunch of them. I guess these are Jonahs.
Yeah.
What? Oh, go ahead.
And even still, it's like even within an individual riffing, even within an individual like series, there would always be multiples of a given robot in any case, whether by it being the dozens of Tom Servo duplicates or that time travel duplicated. Crow just got a job in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I really do. That's something I really did appreciate about Cypher when they just went, you know what? It's funny, do it. Does it make sense? No. Yeah, does it make sense for the Satellite of Love to have a squash court and like a grain silo? No. Who cares? It's funny to say it.
Yeah. Well, it's just a show. You should really just relax. One thing that I wanted to bring up, that one of the bigger things that bothered me with this new series, from an editing standpoint, the Liquid Television edits.
Oh, yeah.
Where they, mid-sentence, have a cut and then have like bubbles and a sound effect go across to cover up that they messed up the take. You guys noticed that, right?
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is disappointingly sloppy to me. Like, they really needed to do another take. And I don't know if this was because they messed it up and there was time issues, or maybe, like, the editors were like, I liked this part of the take, but the beginning was better on this one, and let's try and finagle it here. Or they thought they were being ADD about it, and they're like, oh, the pause is too long, we gotta make it quicker. Whatever the case was, it was really distracting, and I hope that they don't do that in the next season.
Yeah, that is a danger of the format, that you have to have these single take sketches that could last for several minutes, but
you can cut away to the other people though, and there's other things you can do.
Yeah, you've got Max and Kinga. You could probably find an excuse to post-production cut, but that might have been a production problem. I don't know. Yeah. That's something that you could probably also write around if you're worried that a single take sketch would be going on too long.
I remember that, like, when I saw that, I was like, you know what? I'd be willing to forgive this if it was somebody in our situation where we've got literally no budget.
Yeah. And it's like, maybe you're lucky if you have 2 people working on your show to edit and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. But this is the biggest Kickstarter, or the most expensive Kickstarter of all time. They do have some budget, and maybe it was a time issue. I don't know, but
and they got a crew that would that you probably bigger than everybody who's worked on the old show together
Yeah. The
over the course of the thing.
the only thing I can think is that maybe it might have been a situation where they recorded the King and Max stuff all kind of at once, and may not have realized that they had they needed a reshoot.
Yeah.
Something
It's
like
very possible it had to do with scheduling with them as well, since they,
have careers.
yeah. I don't mean that in a
And,
mean way, but bigger actors and they have a busy schedule.
Yeah, and Felicia's got a baby now, so
Oh,
yeah, she has an infant now, so she's kind of. Yeah, I think she was not visibly pregnant at the time of shooting, but by the time they got done, I think I'd have to double check, but yeah,
okay.
so that might have played into it. But yeah, I'm really hoping we don't see that back. It works okay as a transition if it's an intentional scene transition,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Well,
on its
especially
own-
because there's like a sound effect and a visual thing that's like breaking it up. It just takes you out of the scene.
I don't
I like
remember
the
what
visual
episode-
of them just putting the movie in the big tube and then like shooting it down like that. Like that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember what episode it was, but there was one where they do that bubble edit right before a movie sign. It's just, God, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
There was one that was like
awkward.
mid-sentence when Crow was talking. It was mid-sentence. It was strange. And like the old show had a lot of flubs that they would keep in for sure, but I mean, it was completely different production back then.
Yeah. But hopefully that's something that a season 2 they'll have learned from the mistake and
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they'll just keep getting better, because you can tell that they're learning and adapting as they go, even just in this season. And
Yeah.
once they get feedback from people too, I think that they will take that and implement it.
yeah. I think we've got a really good start to something that could last a while, and it'd be interesting to see if they decide to go for a Generation 4 at some point.
Yeah.
I have no problem with seeing this being a thing that just runs on and on with a different human host and different people behind the puppets.
Yeah. Well,
Well, this is a... Okay.
well, you're the guest star. You go first.
Well, this is a show that lends itself very well to continuing for a long time, because you get new hosts, you get new writers. It's always a different movie. It's not like X-Files or Supernatural or like a long-running scripted show or like a narrative script where you're like, well, the stories are getting kind of tired and like, where else do they have to go with this? You're just watching movies, and there's an endless supply of movies.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be able to keep coming up with jokes.
Yeah. There's one thing, not we're kind of coming up on the point where we're going to need to wrap it up. Also, but I do want to point out also, just for anybody listening who doesn't know, there was Cinematic Titanic, which was the 5-person thing that Joel did before this. Shout Factory has announced that they're going to put out that entire like 12 show run in a single DVD thing for like $45.
That's not bad.
Nice.
Yeah, and they used to run them all on Hulu, but you can't find them there anymore. And like half of them are in studio with shadows and all that, but then half of them are just live shows that they did. And I'm telling you, the back half, which is just live shows, that alone is worth the $45. I will say that one episode Alien Factor is some of the best. I mean, that's right up there with some of the best of the original Mystery Science
Nice.
run. It's like this late 70s, early 80s, clearly amateur horror sci-fi schlock, just shot in a crummy neighborhood up north. Like, it's in that weird, ambiguous 70s, 80s transitional era, so everybody looks like they come out of Three Dog Night or something. And the effects are all stop motion and badly superimposed. And it's live, and the crew has been together long enough again, and they've been together long where they just have this beautiful flow. And two of the best jokes in the whole run, that painfully funny. Trace nearly made me pee myself with one joke. I mean, he delivers a joke that everybody on stage just loses their shit for several seconds. You know it's a good joke when the next couple riffs are obscured by the riffers trying to choke it out with a laugh.
Yeah. And having live riffed, I have to say that I respect that type of skill.
I mean, that's got to be really difficult.
Well, there's a good energy. We did that for years at the Transformers conventions, and there's an energy that just kind of feeds, and that feeds into you when a joke is hitting, and it starts to hit, and it just keeps going. It's a really good cycle.
Yeah, you can tell when a riffer is bouncing off of the audience and able to feed off of that and putting it into the delivery. And, that's always really great.
So that's which was why I really did like Joel and Jonah's live riff at the Mystery Science reunion show. They did a really good job on that one, and you could tell that they were really buoyed by the energy that didn't quite show up in the early Mystery Science of this season, but I think they'll get there.
Yeah,
I think they will too.
I think that even with the flaws we've been talking about, this is by far not the worst Mystery Science Theater season. It's just on average, it's got good. The movies are good on their own in many cases. A couple of them are slow, but it doesn't have that sort of depressing thing they had around year 3 or 4 of the original Joel run, when things were getting kind of dry.
Recycling jokes.
Yeah, it wasn't like that, and it's clumsy, but I mean, as far as first seasons go with a new crew, they're doing really well, I would say.
There was no episodes that I disliked. Well, I mean, there were jokes that didn't land, but there was nothing where I'm like, oh, I really just did not care for that one. And the worst of this season is still better than some of the really bad early ones where there's no jokes going on and kind of sort of putting their feelers out.
Yeah, we're gonna run to the Jim Henson's blank baby joke. Well, all right. If you want, I suppose you could never make that joke again. As far as I'm concerned, I'd be very happy.
Yeah, that was one of those where I was like, you know what? I understand what it's like when you think something's hilarious and no one else does.
But can you see why kids love Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
Precisely.
I'm gonna go down with that one, goddammit. I will have that on my tombstone.
Oh, the joke is dead. Long live the joke.
That's Cinnamon Toast Crunch Babies, right?
Yes. Cinnamon Toast Crunch style oats.
Don't even get me started.
I was wondering if I was going to make it all the way through without referencing that at some point, and apparently I failed.
It doesn't count if the joke was never funny, huh?
Oh dear.
Occasionally I will get...
thank you for coming and shooting the shit with us on this.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
No problem, it was fun.
Yeah, we should do this more often.
For sure.
All right, well, everybody make sure and continue tuning in while we struggle to get content out while Greg's moving. And and definitely go over to Allison's channel, because she has things like content and jokes.
Lots of it.
And a delightful number of series involving David Hasselhoff. So
thank you. And yes, I will repeat that. Visit my stuff.
There money.
We'll have links in the down below, whatever horrible euphemism you want to use for the stuff under the YouTube screen. All right.
I think we've milked this one dry.
Yep. See you guys.
Right. Thank you again. Bye.
Okay, I think we got a good stopping point there. Now everyone save this before Audacity crashes.
Hey, Pipples, if you liked our nonsense, why don't you give us a like, or a subscribe, or leave a comment down there somewhere?
You can also do us a big solid by joining our Patreon, where you'll get to join us for live streams, get early access to the newest videos, and other such things.
Geek Vision.